Good Sunday morning. Welcome to WGN-TV Political Report. I'm Paul Lisnick. After months of speculation about his future plans, Governor J.B. Pritzker made it official last week. He's running for a third term in Illinois. But the message still has many questioning what Pritzker has in mind for the long term. WGN political reporter Tamon Bradley has the story for us.
At Chicago's Grand Crossing Park Fieldhouse, Governor J.B. Pritzker kicked off his bid for a third term.
I ran for governor in 2018 to change our story. I ran for governor in 2022 to keep telling our story. And I am running for governor in 2026 to protect our story.
Seeking to become the first Illinois Democrat elected to more than 2 terms, Pritzker released this campaign video celebrating accomplishments.
We balanced 7 straight budgets and got 9 credit upgrades. We raised the minimum wage, capped the cost of insulin, banned assault weapons, protected abortion rights.
And he's presenting himself as the antidote to President Trump.
Donald Trump's made clear he'll stop at nothing to get his way. I'm not about to stand by and let him tear down all we're building in Illinois.
Even as he focuses on 2026, Pritzker is often mentioned as a likely 2028 candidate for president. He's traveled to New Hampshire, raised money for Democrats across the country, and in 2024, the governor made Kamala Harris's list of possible running mates. In the rollout, Pritzker made no mention of a future White House run.
I'm running for governor of Illinois. I want to be governor of Illinois. That's 4 more years, yeah.
Pritzker hits the campaign trail without naming a running mate. Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton is campaigning for the Democratic nomination for U.S. Senate.
We're going to let you know about that shortly because we've got to put petitions out there with a lieutenant governor candidate.
In his first 2 elections, the self-financing billionaire easily defeated his Republican opponents. But the chair of the Illinois GOP predicts a different outcome next year.
Instead of trying to be rehired, we should fire him. And there's nothing about the last 8 years that have been good for Illinois families, for the fine working men and women of our state.
Republicans say they'll put forth a formidable candidate in the general election, but they're still shopping for the person. DuPage County Sheriff James Mindrick is the biggest name in the race so far. Tamon Bradley, WGN News.
Thanks, Tamon. Patrick Bingston is the author of The Illinois, a daily publication. He joins me this morning to talk about what is next. Patrick, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. Okay, so Pritzker announces third term. I have to start by asking, were you surprised or were you not surprised? Because that's the way you keep your face in the public eye.
I don't think it's a matter of surprise because they've sort of been hinting at this the last couple of months. I think the question is whether he should have. Because it's going to be really tough in a third term if he is reelected.
He'd be the first Democrat, right? Thompson
first
did it,
Democrat ever to be elected to 3 terms in Illinois, but the third term will be really hard. The financial picture is bleak. The legislature is like trying to keep 78 cats in a wheelbarrow in the House. It's a really difficult job moving forward. And then all of the consequences that come with it, either you're raising taxes or you're cutting programs, it's a lose-lose in a presidential election. The other thing to take note of, though, this was also a soft launch for 2028. This was not a speech aimed at Illinois. This was not a speech aimed at governor. This was a speech very aimed at raising his profile for 2028.
Well, that kind of taps into my next question, because in his announcement video that got released during the week, his entire attack really was about national Republic. It was Trump. You didn't hear him even talk about Illinois Republicans or no names there, no policies there. He touted some of his accomplishments, but it was all about Trump. Indicator.
One, there's not much to fight against for Illinois Republicans or with Illinois Republicans because they don't much matter in the scheme of things right now. And if you're a Democrat, if you're trying to play to the city and to Democrats and a national stage and suburban voters, who's the villain in politics for these guys right now? It's Donald Trump. So of course he's the guy that's the foil for J.B. Pritzker right now.
Yeah, just to put a button on it, it sounds like you're saying that given that announcement, though, it's pretty much not leaving much question as to whether he's going to run for president.
No, and of course, the UTV types like to do your, trying to pin him to asking a question and say, oh, are you pledging to run your full 4-year term? I think he got the question 3 times in 12 minutes yesterday after his speech. And of course, he deflected because every good politician deflects on a question like that because they don't want to answer it. But it's pretty obvious where he's eyeing or what he's eyeing. And I don't think they've made a real secret of it, even if they're not willing to confirm it, which is kind of playing us all for dummies. Like, we can see it, our eyes work. We can see when somebody's making national moves. We saw it with Barack Obama, didn't we? So would it really hurt him to just say, hey, you know, if it's something that pops up, great. You know, all he has to do is say that.
Well, in the Republican announcement or response, comment from Kathy Salvi, chair of that party, she basically said in a note, media, ask him every day whether he will serve 4 years. He's ready for it. That question.
Who cares?
Okay.
I mean, that just shows, I mean, instead of talking about cost of living, instead of talking about increased taxes, instead of talking about property taxes that are choking people out of this state, they're going to talk about whether he's going to serve a 4-year term. That's an Illinois Republican Party that is completely lost in space right now.
Well, let's take a look at some of the polls. You cited them in the Illinois. I read you every day.
Thank you.
And you said that right now, folks with a strongly favorable view of Pritzker, at about 36%, unfavorable at 41%. And the question you raise in your column is whether or not his support is a mile wide and an inch deep. Is that the sense you get?
I think it's clear that the people who passionately dislike him, very passionately dislike him, right? The way they do polls, they have top 2 boxes and bottom 2 boxes. It's strongly favorable and somewhat favorable, and strongly unfavorable and somewhat unfavorable. The stronglies are the ones that are the most interesting. He is far outpacing the strongly disapproved to those who strongly approve, which I think shows that the passion against him is higher than the passion for him. But the top 2 boxes, of course, show him at over 50%. So he's in a pretty good position in the broad scheme of things. But it's very clear that there's a large segment of the population that does not like him.
Well, and you know the Republican side of things very well. Would you say, looking at those polls, that there is a hunger in the state for a different, maybe at this point, a Republican governor in this state?
I think there could be, if there were a Republican who were competent enough and funded enough to make a campaign of it. And no one has made an indication that they're able to do that at this point.
Well, and let's talk about the Republican opponent. There will be one. And as we know, Sheriff Jim Mendrick from DuPage County, he's announced he's got only, as you report, $76,000 on hand. Doesn't quite get to the Pritzker money at that point. But there's others thinking about it. Representative Dan Ugasti of Geneva, maybe Cook County Chair. He commented the other day on social media, I'm going out of town, but I'll be back and I have a plan. Aaron Del Mar is who I'm talking about. Who in the field do you see as a viable challenger right now?
None of the above? Is that
not even Aaron?
I think there are questions about Aaron's background that will probably, he might do well in a primary, but I think he would definitely struggle in a general. The question here is even if you have a Mark Kirk style candidate, last time Republicans won statewide, you're talking Mark Kirk in 2010, Bruce Rauner in 2014, Judy Bartopinka in 2014, right? Those are the last 3 Republicans to really win statewide. Dan Rutherford in 2010 as well. But Kirk, Rauner, and Topinka were all very moderate. Those moderates can't get through a Republican primary today. That's the problem that faces the Republican Party, and Republican voters don't see that, hey, you might need to move someone a little more to the center if you're actually going to play in November.
So what about Darren LaHood? Congressman Darren LaHood, he was on the show a couple of weeks ago. He's mulling around Senate for sure based on his answers to me on that. But as somebody who may be a little more well-known, whatever, where does he fit in that picture?
He could be a potentially strong candidate because he's a smart guy and a good campaigner. His full-on embrace of the MAGA thing doesn't help him in the suburbs. I'm pretty well sourced within his crew, and they've made it pretty clear that he's not going to be running for governor or Senate. He's in a good position to be in House leadership.
All right. Obviously, Pritzker needs to pick a new running mate. We hear names bandied about a bit, like Representative Jahan Gordon Booth, Deputy Governor Andy Manar. How critical is a pick for a running mate for Pritzker?
Normally, not at all. But if you're talking about somebody who's considering running for president, which would mean he would have to vacate office midterm, you need someone who can literally walk in and do the job on January 15th, 2029. Andy Manar, whether you like him or not, and he's certainly split among partisan lines. Republicans don't like him that much. Democrats generally like him. I think both parties in Springfield would look at Andy Manar and say, that's somebody that can come in and do the job.
And finally, Rahm Emanuel, he's now said, yeah, I'm thinking about it. I've been told that Rahm and JB would never run against each other. They're good friends. They would decide. What are you hearing? What do you know?
Their sniping recently makes you think that they're not really on each other's Hanukkah card lists. But I don't know. I think they're kind of working in different circles right now.
Okay. Is this going to be a race? I mean, back to the governor's race. We have just a few seconds, but is it a race to watch?
Today, no. Could it be? Yes.
Okay. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for
Pleasure
that
as
insight.
always.
We're going to touch base on this issue again
Yes,
because
sir.
this is a race we're going to be watching. Okay. We are going to take our first break. Thanks to Patrick Finkston. And up next on WGN TV Political Report, we are headed to Washington. President Trump's sweeping domestic agenda once again in peril as lawmakers squabble over details of his big, beautiful bill. Congressman Mike Quigley joins me when we come back. Stay with us.